Good evening and welcome to the public hearing on the fiscal year 23 budget. On behalf of the entire school board, I would like to thank you for sharing your comments with us. This hearing is being broadcast on channel 99 and live streamed at fcps.edu/tv/ch99. One housekeeping item before we get started. Dr. Anderson is absent this evening. Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Tolan, Ms. Daranak-Kofax, and Mr. Frisch have submitted written requests to virtually attend this evening's public hearing. All those in favor of granting their request, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous with all those present at the table. We have 11 registered speakers who will address the board at this public hearing. Each speaker is allotted 2 minutes, and we ask that you stay within the time limit. The timer will start when you begin to speak, and the timer will sound after 2 minutes. When your name is called, in-person speakers should approach the podium and begin speaking. Virtual speakers should unmute your microphone, turn on your camera, and begin speaking. Substitutions are not permitted. If you have not registered to speak, but would like to address the board, please see the clerk to sign up for one of the 5 extra reserved speaking slots. Madam Clerk, please call our first speaker.
Our first speaker is Nyla Katoria. Our next speaker is Cindy Walsh. Our next speaker is Robert Rigby. Go ahead, Robert.
Good evening. In the budget, you need to hire more licensed health personnel for our schools. Here's why. FLE does a good job teaching about sexual health, but we must have actual services. We need to, 1, provide condoms in schools, 2, provide free anonymous HIV testing and treatment in schools or through the county. We need to do the same for STD testing and treatment, including physicians to write scripts and pharmacists to fill them. And in the spring of attacks on Roe v. Wade, we need much more information about access to abortion service. Students hear about sexual health fleetingly in FLE, but whom do they go to with their questions and for help? This is why you need to increase the number of health personnel. On a couple of other notes, 1, as always, listen to students, in particular the Pride Liberation Project, and 2, school systems in Virginia are already acting on SB 656. In Orange County, Virginia, on Monday, they will vote whether or not to ban any mention of LGBTQIA+ people anywhere in the school at any time in any grade. Also, catch this, they will out all LGBTQIA students intentionally. To top that, they're voting on banning CRT. Lord knows what they mean by that. It's a dry run for the VDOE policies for next year. Here's the question. Will the FCSB stand by queer people and people of color in these dark days, or will we say that the law requires that we yield? Arlington and Charlottesville stood up in the 50s against massive resistance. Fairfax did not. What will we do now?
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Walrod.
Chair Pekarsky, Dr. Brabrand, members of the board, thank you for giving me time to speak today. As you consider the budget process, I have 3 points that I would like you to consider. First, teachers are tired and stressed after a long 3 school years. Teachers have made summer plans, they have their vacations planned, they've enrolled their children in summer camps. I'm asking you straight out, please do not make this employee start date any earlier than you already have scheduled. While I appreciate the benefit that could come from bringing teachers back early for professional development, this would not benefit employee morale or mental health. Keep the employee start date where it is. Second, Please continue to work to improve the salaries for our valuable support staff. Our schools could not operate without office staff, instructional assistants, PHTAs, bus drivers, food service workers, custodial staff. The board recently went through a 3-year phase to improve salaries for these workers, but this should be seen as a start, not an end. Finally, I ask the board to consider solutions beyond this year for lost salary steps on the teacher scale. Every last lost step increase impacts teachers for the rest of their career, not to mention their retirement. Most of your experienced staff are roughly $10,000 behind where we would be if not for frozen steps, and that difference gets compounded every year. Thank you for considering these factors as you deliberate on your final fiscal year 23 budget.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kimberly Adams.
Well, I feel kind of comfortable. Good evening, school board members, Chair Corbett Sanders, Dr. Brabrand, leadership team members, member. I'm Kimberly Adams, and I'm speaking as the president of the Fairfax Education Association, a union representing thousands of your employees. Tonight, we have a few items to share with you, but we do so knowing that a final budget is struggling to make its way out of Richmond. We hope that our elected officials will recognize the chronic underfunding of our schools with state resources. We are thankful that the County Board of Supervisors will fund most of your requested transfer. We believe that you should have sufficient dollars to complete several budget priorities this time around. First, we would join the FCFT in asking that you not extend the employee contract time into the summer months for instructional personnel. We agree that morale is the bottom line issue here. The timing is too late in the year for changes to our calendar when we have families of our own for whom we have planned to support before the start of our next contract year. We know this increase in contract length would come with additional compensation, but at this point, our mental health concerns abound. The reduction in the transfer may reduce your ability to achieve this additional time as well, but the potential for training throughout the calendar year would be better served. Second is the approval of a significant improvement to our transportation salary scales. FEA appreciates that we were at the table to take part in this discussion. We anticipate a discussion on this next week at your work session, and we wholeheartedly support that you might include an additional $4.3 million to achieve the full needed increase, as well as the additional increases for our parent liaisons. And in addition on salaries, please also include additional attention to the top steps of all of our scales. Missteps year after year have had a negative impact and now equaling more than tens of millions. We sent you communications about offering virtual program. We believe that the need exists for our staff and students to be protected and should they choose to participate in this option. Some students are beyond worried that getting COVID might be a death sentence for them or a family member. This applies to staff.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tina Williams.
Good evening, Chair Pekarsky, school board members, FCPS leadership, and the community. I'm Tina Williams, president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers Union, which represents thousands of FCPS education professionals. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week to our wonderful FCPS instructional staff. Their dedication and commitment to our public schools is stronger than ever, and they are deserving of respect and appreciation every day. What I hear from members consistently is that a thank you is appreciated, but those are just words unless they're backed by actions. Thank you to the school board for an FY23 budget that does look to prioritize compensating all employees with a 4% MSA and a step increase for all of those eligible. This may help to attract and retain more employees for the next school year. My members continue to share concerns around working conditions, student learning conditions, and the mental well-being of their students, their colleagues, and for themselves. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. This budget must also prioritize social emotional learning programs and have a formalized process to ensure best practices are used to tell us how our students and staff are doing. Our children continue to recover from learning interruptions and the social emotional impacts brought on by the pandemic. These challenges can hinder a child's engagement, ability to participate in formal learning, and to experience positive and healthy outcomes. FCPS staff continue to struggle with mental well-being and report that much more still needs to be done to help them. Lifting up and supporting your staff's mental health is an action that supports student well-being and success. The adults in our schools and various work sites.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emily Vanderhoff.
Good evening, Chair Pekarsky, Dr. Brabrand, and members of the board. My name is Emily Vanderhoff. I'm a first grade teacher and a proud member of FCFT. I want to first thank you for the investment in staff salaries that you're making with the STEP and 4% MSA. This is the first step in beginning to make up for years of frozen steps and MSAs. I hope this is not the end to strong investments in staff salaries and that future budgets will continue to account for the years of freezes staff have endured. I also want to reiterate the points that Dave made before me about investing in support staff salaries. The 50% threshold set by the CAS scale enhancement should be a floor and not a ceiling on improvements to ensuring every member of the FCPS family can earn a livable wage. I continue to be concerned about the way this budget addresses planning time and PD. While I'll be the first to say there's not enough time at the beginning of the year, and FCFT even sent you our data on it, we can't pretend that adding 3 PD days at the beginning of the year and nothing the rest of the year will have a meaningful impact on preparing and supporting staff professionally. It also comes at a high cost to staff morale. During the school year, there isn't even time allocated for the committees we're required to have. The MTSS committee, equity committee, all have to meet on employees' own time. And principals try to find time for staff meetings and short trainings and have to ask staff to come in before contract time or stay late. There's a huge shift needed to provide the kind of time that schools need to carry out their required functions and allow for the type of collaboration and professional learning that would yield real meaningful changes in the school. Regular early releases would allow for these changes without budget implications, or if workdays were spread out throughout the year, the $32 million could go to making support staff whole for those who are only paid on student days. I hope this board will thoughtfully consider different ways that a $32 million investment could go towards supporting professional learning without just a one-touch in August. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leslie Houston. Our next speaker is Susan Lux. Our next speaker is Charlene Farrell. Our next speaker is Norm Hall.
Sorry. Thanks for taking these comments into account. For the past 2 years, I have been waiting to extend remarks I made at the start of the pandemic about ways to return better once we can. Many think that time is now. A fair budget invests public money at a level where worker needs can be met. Check. A good budget explains how the public money invested will meet needs that have been discussed. Check. A great budget will fund programs that are needed for foreseeable needs, whether or not attention has been given to them. Well, this is not a great budget, as there are areas that neither the ESSER plans nor the annual budget have identified. Not only that, but your staff has not demonstrated how public input was taken into account. Here's 2 examples. 1, the homebound program. I've been on record calling for changes to the homebound program for years. Your staff points to more use of homebound rather than continuation of online services, regardless of many individual circumstances that students and their families may face. What happened to by name, by need? 2, after-school care. Again, I've been on record numerous times calling for more open dialogue about making sure that there would be enough high-quality staff, space, and infrastructure to help families when workers can all get back to work. I am a subject matter expert on homebound and childcare. I've done this work before. Perhaps more significantly, I'm also a subject matter expert on long-term COVID effects, in that my daughter's H1N1 illness derailed her public education back in 2010. That experience led me to my supporting role in founding SEPTA and serving as its first advocacy chair. Refusal to adopt a simple statement about supporting immunocompromised students, no messaging masks, not even modeling mask usage by leadership when you meet in confined spaces. All of this shows you value the loud voices of 40% of the population who my state senator listened to over mine. He wouldn't even return my call, even after I explained to his staff person that my daughter's education was harmed in a way that would be less likely only if workable layers of COVID mitigation measures.
That was our final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you to everyone for attending tonight's public hearing in person and virtually, and for sharing your comments and concerns. The board will hold a budget work session on May 10th, and we will take action on the budget on May 26th. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.